Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With rising deficits in the NHS, huge costs of pension reform and tighter pressures on public spending, how can the Prime Minister claim that spending at least £600 million a year on his ID card scheme is a good use of public money?
Because if we introduce an ID card scheme and reduce identity fraud, that makes a major difference to the costs of government, to the costs of doing business. And in today's world, if we want to tackle illegal migration, crime and identity fraud, then using the new biometric technology to have ID cards is an important part of doing so.
We face those problems and threats today. These cards won't come in till 2013. He could use the money to buy 20,000 extra police force officers or to have 24-hour security at our ports. Will the Prime Minister accept that almost every government IT programme has massively overrun? What guarantee can he give that his estimates are right, whereas the London School of Economics that talk about £14.5 billion, almost half the cost of the Department of Education's entire budget, are actually wrong?
First of all, let me say to the honourable gentleman, if his concern is that these ID cards aren't going to be introduced quickly enough, work with us to make sure that they're introduced more quickly. But that is an absurd reason for not introducing them. And as for the calculations made by the LSE, I think I'm right in saying that this report, though put out under the LSE's name, is actually written by someone who's the leading campaigner on civil liberty grounds against ID cards. So I don't think it's an entirely objective assessment. And therefore, if I can say to him, I think that he should think again about identity cards. I think they are an important, indeed essential way of tackling illegal migration and crime in the early 21st century. They may, if I can put it like this, they may be the future, not the past.
When it comes to who is working with the Prime Minister, perhaps he could answer this question. It's been widely briefed that the Chancellor doesn't back ID cards and will scrap them. So will the Prime Minister give a guarantee that when the Chancellor takes over his job, this scheme will be continued with?
Certainly can give a guarantee that the government as a whole is absolutely behind identity cards for a very simple reason. And I may say that the start-up costs of ID cards have been provided by the Chancellor himself. So it is important that we recognise that identity cards, why is it so important now? Because we know from all the available evidence that identity fraud is on the increase. That is bound to happen in the modern world. The reason why so many people, when they've looked at this, including the former leader of the Conservative Party, have come to the conclusion we need identity cards. And the reason why it's right to do it now is because we have the biometric technology coming in. Other countries, for example, are going to be moving towards biometric passports. We will have to do that. Actually, the largest part of the cost of an identity card will come through the biometric passport, which we have to do. I assume he's in favour of the biometric passport. Perhaps he can elucidate that. We know his policy tends to shift a little quickly nowadays. So the reasons for it are it's absolutely where we need to be in fighting crime and illegal migration and identity fraud in the early 21st century, and the costs will be largely met through the biometric passport.
I think I should remind the Prime Minister these sessions are about me asking questions on behalf of the public and him answering on behalf of the government. If he wants to switch it around, he can have a general election. Doesn't the Prime Minister have a choice? He can think again, or he can plough on with what will become a monument to the failure of big government.
I totally disagree with him, and I do apologise for asking these policy questions, but the fact is his policies change so very quickly on almost a day-to-day basis that sometimes it's always a good idea just to inform myself in order to keep up with where he is at any one time. But if I can simply say to him this, I think with the greatest respect, it's him who should think again about this. Look, we are going to have to introduce biometric passports. I know he agrees with that. We are therefore going to be in a position where we're going to have to make enormous changes for the vast bulk of people who have passports over the years to come. We know that identity fraud is a major and growing problem. The reason why right round the world people are moving to these systems is that it's necessary to tackle the problems of today's world. And Of course there is a cost to identity cards, but there's a cost to identity fraud today in so many different ways. And I actually think as this argument progresses, that I suspect he will find himself in the same position as he's been on rather a lot of policies recently. Everything from the patient's passport to selection on schools, to the environment, to social justice. I could go on, it's a long list. Of when we actually do come to the point of the next general election, I suspect he will be standing on his head as he has on so many other issues.